Hello and welcome to another episode of Sharing Wisdom. I'm your host, Angie Wisdom, and today's conversation is so timely, you guys, because we're living in a world that is changing so quickly. I mean, we've got technology, we've got AI, leading the way. We've got cultural shifts in workplaces. We've got a lot of emotions, political things going on that to me, it seems like more than ever, people are wanting a meaningful connection. They're wanting like human involvement. They're craving it. So when we think about leadership, like it's a non-negotiable to be showing up impactful and meaningful. And so whether you're leading a team, whether you're leading a company, whether you're just trying to lead yourself or your family, the world needs like something different from you. I brought Laguzza in. She has got over 20 years of experience as a leadership expert, a coach, a speaker. You all, she's in it daily. She's in the companies understanding what, the issues and the challenges are. And I want her to give you expert insights today because if you're leading people, you want to retain them. You want them to be fulfilled and you want to be a great leader. So Anne, so happy to have you here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad to be here.
It's going to be such a good conversation.
Yeah, I can't wait.
You get to see this every single day.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you've got years and years of experience, which I kind of just want to start with that because it's evolved a lot, leadership and the corporate world and all of that. So when you look at like what's transpired over the years and what we're sitting in right now, as far as a leadership environment, corporate environment, what are you seeing on a daily basis out there?
Oh my gosh, it's so different from when I started.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really interesting because when I think back about the different leaders I had, they were so progressive for their time because they were teaching things that we have to implement now. And back then it seemed really like, who's doing this?
Mhm.
Nobody. It seemed so cutting edge. And yeah, I mean, I think the demands on leaders right now, there's so many things, right? So first of all, it's at the hiring level, there's challenges with hiring leaders. So a lot of people are sort of promoting early or hiring in less experienced leaders and then possibly not training them, but there needs to be that commitment to training. And then I think employees are just putting more demands on the work environment than ever before and expecting so much out of their work environment. So the leaders have to be ready for that. And they're often not, which I understand.
Yeah. Well, you bring up two important things. I think one, that oftentimes people get promoted into leadership just because they have like seniority, right? Like I've done this job for 10 years. So guess what? You're a leader now.
You're a leader.
Right?
Yes.
And then also like, did you see that huge shift after COVID as far as when employees started to really put the demands on the workplace and the environment?
That's a great question. I would say that it's definitely increased since
Okay.
COVID, right? I do think we saw it even before, but it's definitely increased. It's just I mean, I'm out there watching social media too, and there's so many videos out there about, your employer can't ask you to do this, or they shouldn't be asking you to do that, or you need to demand more money. And I'm not saying that all of that is wrong, right? But there's a time and a place, and there's a way to do it. And it's just, I don't know, there's a lot of information coming into everybody now. And it's really, if leaders, like you said, aren't keeping up with sort of what they need to be doing to engage their teams, they're really struggling right now.
Yeah. And I think especially I'll call myself out, from an age perspective, I mean, we're kind of in the same camp. So it's like, just threw you under the bus.
I know. No, I love it. I love it.
But it's like, we can tend to think back and be like, well, when I started, right?
Yes.
Like I remember like my first job at 13 and you had all these rules of like what you could wear, what, how you had to have your hair, like all these things. And now like in the state of California, it's like, everything is okay.
It's very hard. Yeah. It's so funny you say that because even for a while, I was that kind of leader. Like I was in retail for a while and I had very strict rules about how my employees dressed and how they presented themselves. And I've often reflected back on, I'm so thankful for the leaders I had, but some of them were really tough. Like there was no sort of soft words or we're going to be careful the way we say this. And although I'm really grateful today for that, a lot of that would not fly today.
Right.
At all.
And I think that's what a lot of leaders face today because if they don't have that skill set or they don't have this awareness that is now current, you kind of feel like handcuffed. I hear from people all the time and they're like, I'm afraid to hire anyone, especially in
Yeah,
California, because
especially
like
California.
they've heard all these stories of like, gosh, people don't stay and then, you hire and they quit or you have to fire. And if you fire, like, oh my gosh, the liability. So
Yes.
I really want to dig into that. I want people
Yeah.
that are listening to feel confident in how to lead best for a few reasons. One, to know that they can grow and scale their business and be a great leader,
Yeah.
but also that retention aspect of like,
Yeah.
what are people looking for out there, and how do we have to communicate and show up as a leader in order to have that meaningful, impactful connection that I think people are craving.
Right. It's so interesting, and this won't be any surprise to you, but it really is about the communication piece. And I feel like all day, every day, that's almost all I'm saying on every single call. I'm saying
Mhm.
it in different ways, but I'm
Mhm.
teaching leaders how to communicate because I don't have all my clients in California. We do have a good group in California, and they have gotten so fearful. And I
Mhm.
think this does happen to all leaders in all places,
Mhm.
depending on, like you said, whether they have experience or training. But they really struggle with, how do I say this? So sometimes I'll just say, "What do you want to say?" And they'll say it to me, and I'm like, "Why don't you say that?"
Yeah.
And it's like, "Well, can I?" And I'm like, "Well, I didn't hear anything that was wrong with anything you
Yes.
just said." And it is just about trying to focus on that and
Yeah.
figure out the best way to communicate. And if for no other reason, it's the right way to treat people. Like I always say that. I'm like, you could look at this like, gosh, I could, I've had plenty of leaders who've yelled at me. And yes, those were the times, I guess, at that time. And right, you can't do that today really without a lot of liability possibly
Mhm.
coming.
Mhm.
But it also isn't a great way to engage teams. I mean,
Right.
leading from fear, sure, people will likely do what you want them to do, but it's not the best place to lead from.
And they're likely not going to stay.
No,
Yeah.
no.
And I'm sure you have those moments too where someone's like, well, this is what I want to say. And you're like, yeah, you
Yeah,
can't say that.
exactly.
Let's work on a reframe here.
I'm like, okay, so let's take those words, let's like rework it a little bit. I know this was before apps have gotten so advanced, and now with AI, I should have
Yeah.
done this, but somebody years ago said to me, I wish we had like a what would Ann do, and we could
Yes.
just say it into the phone, and then you
Mhm.
could reframe it for us because
Right.
it's just that she's like, the way you say it back sounds so much better.
Yes.
It's easier when you're the objective party, though,
For sure.
too.
When we're not holding the emotions, people say that to me all the time. Like, well,
Exactly.
you say it. So I'm like, I don't have the feelings that you do.
Right,
Right.
right.
And
I'm
that's
not in
so
this day to day.
much of
Yeah.
what the communication, I think,
Yeah.
gets in the way of. So speaking about communication,
Yes.
I love this conversation because I always find that a lot of leaders and people that are either company owners or high level leaders, they have a certain personality type. Have you taken the Enneagram? Do you know much about it?
I have taken it and I don't remember what I am
Okay.
though.
Okay.
I'm
So
like, don't ask because I won't know.
you're like, don't go there. Don't go there. But I'll just give you like the basics,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Like a lot of leaders end up being challengers or achievers, right?
Hmm.
In short, high performers, right?
Yeah.
That kind of A personality, type A personality, the D on the disc, all that kind of stuff where it's like
Yeah.
they're very direct, they're very like high achieving, high expectations. And people like that often find it harder to communicate in a different way than just do what you need to do.
They do.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's like I just want to tell them like they should know, they should do.
Yes.
So I guess my question is that then sometimes people go, "Well, I want to be authentic." Right? I have to
Hmm.
change the way I talk for
Yeah.
the people on the other side. Wait, I'm the boss. Like, so what do you share with people around that?
That's such a good question. I was just working with I was just coaching a leader yesterday who
Uh-huh.
is exactly that.
Yes.
And she's a great leader. And what's interesting though is, even though in her direct style, I still don't find that there's anything wrong with being
Mm.
direct. The
Mhm.
main thing I really just have to remind her is that sometimes people need a little more acknowledgement.
Mm.
So she'll be direct, move on, direct, move on, direct, move on. And the team will have done something pretty significant. And she forgets to stop and go, hey, everybody, thank you so much. Right. Like, so one day
Mhm.
she said to me, this one employee she's kind of been having challenges with, and she said she's been really helping me lately. And I said, did you tell her that? And she
Yeah.
said, well, I haven't really had time. What do you mean you haven't had time? And that's that sort of that
Right.
high direct communication style, because she's on to the next. And I said,
Yes.
as soon as we're done with this call, you need to tell her that. I
Yeah.
said, you need to tell her specifically what she's done and how she's helping you. Because, yes, has she been sort of a challenging employee? 100%, but she's showing signs of some good performance here,
Yeah.
and she needs to acknowledge that.
Yeah, what do you think that is? There's something about sometimes that high level that is
Yeah.
just like, why do I gotta pat you on the back?
Yes.
Why do I have to like congratulate you or
I
give you credit for
know.
doing what I pay you to do? And I know
Yes.
that sounds harsh, but sometimes that's the mentality.
I
And I have
agree.
found that oftentimes employees are the personality type that they do want the encouragement. And there's nothing wrong with encouragement. Trust me. I
Yeah,
think that we should
absolutely.
all give ourselves credit, even the type A personalities. I'm like, have you given yourself credit? Like, have you acknowledged yourself?
Right.
It's just a little bit more norm for the employees to need the pat on the back, the
Yeah.
congratulations, the acknowledgement than the leaders. Not saying
Yeah.
right or wrong, but
I agree. It's interesting when I talk to leaders and I'm like, when they say that, because they'll say
yeah.
exactly what you just said. Oh gosh, and I don't want to like have to pat them on the back every time. But I'm like, somebody helped you along the way.
Yeah.
Like you didn't just become a leader. I mean, I know that probably there's some people, but for the most
Sure.
part, someone gave you feedback, someone redirected you, someone helped you. It might not have looked the same way you're thinking of it in your head, right? Because I think they think there has to be this grand stop of the workflow and
Mm,
be like, you're the best person ever. And that's not really what I think most employees are looking for. They're
yeah.
just looking for that meaningful connection, which is exactly how you started this, is that meaning, I call it eye to eye connection, where the leader stops long enough to look somebody in the eye and be very specific with their feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. I'm like, a matter of fact, there's a presentation that I've been speaking on, and there's a part where I tell them, like, I actually am prohibiting them from doing what are called, I call them grand gestures, the gift cards, the pizza parties, the employee of the month, all those things, because I'm like, you all use that and it's too much. And I often think that really becomes more about the leader than it does about the employee.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, stop. And also, when money gets tight, then all of a sudden everyone's like, well, wish I could recognize them, but we don't have money right now to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not about that. Like, just slow down long enough to look at them eye to eye, get away
Yeah.
from your phone or your computer or not be running down the hall or wherever you work, but and give them that super meaningful recognition. It doesn't take
Mm-hmm.
long. And I'm like, and I'm sure someone did that for you in your career.
Yeah.
And when you say it like that, and I get them to start thinking about, everybody has a story about that one leader in their career that said something that is still
Mm.
meaningful to them today. And I'm like, that's acknowledgement to me. It doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
be like, you're amazing.
Right. It doesn't have to
We
be all
love you
like
so
fluffy
much.
and like all feelings, feelings.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you say like the gift cards and the pizza party and all that kind of stuff because I think it is easier
It's so
for
much
high
easier.
level people to just gift,
Yes.
gift, gift, gift,
Yep.
like where's your
Very little
bonus?
time, right? Then
Yeah.
yeah, you don't have to put any really much thought into it.
No emotion, no connection.
No connection. And when I do
Safe.
say, if you're gonna do something like that, then it should be something very meaningful to that
Yeah.
person.
Love it.
Yeah, like you should really know enough about them to say like, oh, Angie really likes this restaurant, and gosh, it'd be great to give her a gift card so she could take whoever she wants to take
Mm-hmm.
and go to this restaurant.
Yeah. Thoughtful.
But with like the interaction as well.
Yes.
Not just drop the gift card off somewhere.
Have your assistant put it on their desk,
Yeah,
right?
get
Yeah.
it sent over by
Right.
email. Yeah, that's
Text it
my
over.
favorite. Text over. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'm like,
Yeah,
no, just
I
kidding.
know. I know. You're taking notes. You're like,
Uh-huh.
okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
noted. I want to talk about like what I asked you before, like what you're seeing. So for people listening and going, gosh, I have employees.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that they are happy here, that they are fulfilled here, that I can retain them because it costs a lot to find them and to train
Yeah.
them. Give me three things that you're like, this is how you should be nurturing and leading your employees so that they're growing and they want to stay with you.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think number one, I think it's really important to ask your employees about their satisfaction there and if
Mm.
they're running into any particular challenges that are making it difficult for them to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be people, right? It can be processes, it can be systems. There's all kinds of things that come up. So I think having that kind of conversation is really important. And I think it's important to have it more than just once a year, right?
Uh-huh.
Have it more often and see how they're, how they're doing. And then also, of course, I had the three, and then I got stuck on my one, and I went off from there. I think the other things I do, I mean, it was you kind of mentioned it earlier about sort of that onboarding and training process. I think you've really got to make sure that you set your employees up for success. And I always say to leaders, because I'll be teaching this, right? And they'll say, okay, great. Well, this was good, but now I have this person who's been with me 90 days or 6 months or a year. I didn't do any of this. And I always say,
Mm.
here's the good news. You can do this anytime.
Mhm.
So you can go to your employee anytime and just say, I want to have kind of a reset conversation. I realize like where we are today with the job may look a little different than where we were with the job when you got hired.
Mhm.
So let's kind of go over what the job is, what my expectations are. I want to make sure I'm really clear, see if you have any questions, and then let's set that groundwork so we can move forward.
Mm.
And you could do that anytime. It could be next Monday.
Yeah.
You could just like do it anytime. And it seems so simple, but it's so valuable. And
Mhm.
even if the job hasn't changed at all, but you're like, I feel like maybe this employee's a little off track, or I'm wondering if they're really liking their job, you can do it anyway. You can still
Right.
say that, right? I just want to make sure we're still in alignment. So I would
Mhm.
absolutely do that. So ask them, I'm trying to think of a third one.
I know there's so many good ones, so it's like
I
to, like, narrow you
know.
down to
I
3,
know.
you know?
I know. I think I mean I just feel like in my experience it's so that connection piece is so important. I know what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I knew it would come back to me. You have to meet with your employees regularly. And I
Mm.
say every 2 weeks minimum.
Oh, wow.
But that meeting isn't, this is what you need to do. Where are you at with this project? What's going on? That meeting is maybe 2 or 3. It might not even get to that long, but open ended questions. I usually ask my leaders to keep it to 15 minutes
Mm.
because if it goes longer than that, it's going to be too long. But it's really about the employee and it's an
Mm.
engagement question, right? So reflecting on the last week. What did you, or last 2 week, the last 2 week period, what it was an opportunity you had to learn something new.
Mhm.
Now, maybe they're going to say, I didn't learn anything. That's good information for you because you don't want too many of those weeks stacked up over and over and over.
Mhm.
Because if someone's not learning,
Yeah.
what's going on there, right? Like, is that the job, and is it a high turnover job? Because that does happen where you have
Mhm.
jobs that you're going to expect to roll over every 6 months or 12 months. So is it just one of those jobs that they're going to hit a ceiling,
Mhm.
or is it you're thinking, oh, I better start talking to this person and find out like what else? Because there's so many things about learning, like. It doesn't have to be that job specific. It can be like, I really would love to get better at communicating. I would love to learn more about leadership in general. I'd like to learn how to set boundaries.
Mhm.
And as you know, there's so many resources out there.
Yeah.
So I think having those kind of meetings where it's really about the employee, it's a very quick meeting. It's just in one or two open-ended questions to really draw them out on where they are.
Mhm. Love that. So they're
Yeah.
being heard.
Yeah.
They're being seen, they're being heard,
Yes.
and almost like all of that really, like the 3 you named
Yeah.
really is that setting them up for success, asking them about feedback, and then making it about them. Like they have a
Absolutely.
voice.
Yeah.
And I think that goes a really long
It
way.
really does.
Yeah.
It really does.
When you think about what is most challenging for leaders right now,
Mm.
because you said like it's a really challenging environment with all the new things that are going on and the demands from the employees. What do you see most often that you get brought in for? Where
Like more challenging situations.
yes, yes.
I would say it always comes to a breakdown of communication,
Mhm.
but what I find, I'm going to say it this way, I think leaders keep people who are not the right match for the job
Yes.
way longer than they should.
Mm.
And I realize I think some leaders think of that as their failure. I even had a leader say that to me yesterday because I shared with her that I'd had 2 other similar conversations that day to put her at
Mhm.
ease. And she said, I'm so glad because I really feel like I've just made a big mistake.
Mm.
You didn't make a mistake. And the other thing I remind people all the time is like, I think about where I started my business almost 25 years ago. If I had hired my employees that I have today back then, I don't know if they would still be with me, but not because of my leadership, because my company is so different and the demands are so different, right? So I always remind people like who you hire today, they may or may not be your person in
Mm.
5 years or 10 years. I mean, it very well could work out that way, but it's also okay to be like, maybe we're shifting or maybe they're not interested anymore and we do need to part ways.
Mm.
But I think that hanging on to the employees, and most of it always will come down to like they didn't have a tough conversation when
Yeah.
they should have.
Yeah. The hanging on to people for too long.
Hmm.
What do you find is the reason they do that? I mean, I hear a lot of times like, I just feel bad. I mean,
Yes.
the avoidance or what?
Yeah. So sometimes I call it the unicorn syndrome where they're like, oh, no one else can do this
Mm.
job.
Mm.
And I'm like, so let's just walk through this. Let's think of something positive. They
Yeah.
win the lottery today and they say, goodbye. Is your company going to close? Are you going to go to business? And it's like, well, no, of course not. And we're going to hire someone new. I'm like, okay, so like, we need to take away that feeling like we can't live without this person. I feel like every time you start feeling that way, you need to start thinking about who else needs to be trained, or because just anything can happen. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be negative, right? I do also think they hang on to people for too long because they feel like it's a reflection of their inability to make the
Mhm.
change. Like,
Mhm.
why is everything I'm trying not working?
Mhm.
And this person, it must be me. I must
Right.
be doing something wrong. So I think that's a really hard one. And then sometimes you inherit people. Oh gosh, I'm going to share this with you because this is one of my pet peeves. You inherit people. And one of the first things leaders say when new leaders, when they take over a team is, don't worry, I'm not going to be making any changes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, please stop
Your
saying
first
that.
lie. You've just built our relationship
Yes.
with the first lie, right?
You should absolutely lead with, hi, I'm your new supervisor, and I probably will be making changes. Am
Uh-huh.
I going to be making them drastically or quick or no? But I am going to be making changes. So I'm happy to talk to you. I'm happy to understand what you like, what you don't like, but I am going to be making changes. You're
Mhm.
not just coming in to keep everything exactly the same, likely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No,
So,
that's a really good one.
yeah, that's one of my, I'm like, just don't say it.
Right. Well, you think about like trust
Mhm.
is huge
Yeah.
for people to trust their leaders.
Yeah.
And it's little things like that
It is. It's
that
funny
can
when I
really
was saying
deteriorate.
that part about asking people, if they enjoy working there, and I get a lot of feedback on that. But my team, I don't think they'll tell me, or they'll be afraid to tell me. And I'm like, that's something you need to work on then.
Right. There's a
Because why
reason.
won't they tell you?
Mhm.
Because my team will tell me. They will tell me. We we have conversations all the time about things they're doing that they don't love, that is not giving them joy, and sometimes
Mhm.
we have to still work around that because you can't always set up a job that's 100% joyful,
Sure.
but I love to know. I love to know when there's something that is really causing them friction for some reason and
Mhm.
why.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to work on that trust, and that is something that can be, I mean, because what, as you probably know this too, what ends up happening is sometimes I'm working with a leader that has a supervisor, a CEO or someone, and then they're like, but how do I get that person to change?
Yeah, you're like,
Yeah, I'm
you
like,
don't.
oh, yeah. We're gonna work on you,
Yeah.
and we're gonna work on you with your team, and we're gonna go
Mhm.
forward from
Mhm.
there.
I always love that question. How do I get them to change?
Yeah.
I'm like, you're not gonna like the answer. Yeah, what we were talking about there about letting hanging on to people for too long.
Yeah.
Let's kind of back up and set people up because I think this is big. I see this
Hmm.
a lot, and it feels like that problem that grows more and more the longer you let it go.
Yeah.
Right? It's harder to end
Yeah.
that relationship because now it's been 3 months and 6 months and a year. And so it just becomes a bigger
Yeah.
problem and a bigger weight. So, what do you recommend people do in the process of like setting themselves up to like be okay with that conversation?
Hmm.
And what I'm trying to get at here is I'm a big believer in going, okay, well, people need to clearly understand their
Yes.
expectations, like understand that what could happen, like not ultimatum, but like how do you set leaders up so that if that time comes, they have paved the way
Hmm.
in a really good way to have that conversation?
Yeah, I love that you brought this up because I'm helping a group right now. They're going through a huge sort of change initiative and they wanted to know about onboarding.
Mhm.
So I gave them sort of my sample, what an onboarding plan would look like. And they literally called me and said, do we really need to do all this? Yeah, you do.
Uh-huh.
And that is I always tell leaders, like when someone's with you, so the first 90 days is really critical. And I actually believe it's much more like 6 months, but for sure the first 90 days. I do talk about having your expectations, your values, what's important, what can this person do that will help you, what makes them successful in this role,
Mhm, mhm.
and really setting up one, a super clear onboarding plan, and then also telling them they're going to be sort of closely managing them for that time. And I had a client that I work with in New York, and I remember they were hiring someone new, and the owner of the company's like, but this person's coming in with so much experience. Am I really going to manage them this closely? And I said, yes, because you're not managing them that closely over their experience. You want to make sure they understand your expectations, your values, how they will thrive in the company. And that leader came back to my client and said, that was one of the best onboardings I've ever been through.
Mm.
And it was funny because originally they weren't totally bought into it. And I just kept saying, you have to go slow. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes we bring somebody in and we're like, okay, you've got experience. I used to have a client that would say, we need somebody that will hit the ground running. We used to do recruiting for them. And I said, that's like your job qualification. Hit the ground running.
Right,
I said, what does
right.
that even mean? Like someone's got to come in. They won't even know where to put their, bag down
Yeah.
or where to eat lunch or, you got to give people the tools. So I think that close management's like super important.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I was just thinking, I was going to say, like, having that conversation, like, I hired you. This is why I hired you.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I'm bringing you into the team. And no one really has those conversations either. It's like, have that conversation, say, and for the first whatever time, 90 days, 6 months, you're going to feel me closely managing you, but it's because I want you to be successful here. You're going to bring your experience into our environment, but I want you to understand our environment, my leadership, how to navigate, right, in the work environment. Who is going to say no to that?
Right.
Absolutely no one.
Well, and that goes back to the second thing you said, setting people up for success.
Yeah.
Yeah, so powerful. That's really, really good stuff. I
Yeah.
think most people, maybe not big companies, but smaller businesses, and when they're trying to scale and expand, it's like by that point, you're like, I just hit the ground running. I just need
Yeah.
somebody to come in here to know what they're supposed
Yeah,
to do and to get it done. And it's like,
exactly.
you
They will
know,
know what they're doing, but they will pull from their previous experience, or previous work environment, which may not be in alignment with
right.
the way you do things. And then that's when we start getting trouble. It's like, oh, this person, was in a meeting and really overstepped, and that's not how we do things here. And I'm like, did anybody go over
Yeah.
meeting rules with them before they walked in? And it's like, well, we thought they would know. And I'm like, well, they know what they did before. That's what they know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's that I just think that first time, and I'll say this too, because if it's not a new employee, but you're a new leader, you still treat that team because they're new to you. And you
Mm.
do the same thing. You tell them you're going to be really closely managing them.
There's so much like proactive upfront communication that
Yes.
just sets everything up
Yes.
nicely.
And
Yeah.
everybody just blows right past
Right, right.
it.
Yeah. Because nobody's present and they're just like on to the next thing.
Everyone just
And
blows right past it. And I'm like,
yes.
oh, because yeah, you're right. Because it's like we're in a hurry, or we've been waiting so long for this person to get here. The team's getting burned out. We got to hurry and get them up to speed.
Hmm.
Like, okay, we need to have a conversation with the team. What do they need to hang in there for a little longer? And then we need to slow things down so this person can be successful.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Gosh, such good stuff there.
Yeah.
You have been in this business almost 25 years. You
Yeah.
started the Works Consulting,
Yeah.
right? You started that because of kind of your experience out there and
Yeah.
going like, something needs to be different. I mean, what was it that you experienced that you were like, I'm changing this up?
So, okay, so this was so interesting. So, I was in house, if you will, for like 10 years, and I definitely had good leaders and bad leaders. I'm thankful for all of them. And when I started my business, I was actually really focused on the human resources side because
Hmm.
I'm in California and all of that. And as I started working, because I'm thinking, everyone, I just kept coming even in my own work, employees who were unhappy, leaders who were unhappy, right? So I'm like, everyone's so unhappy, but we have to spend so much time at work. How do we make it better? And I thought it was about teaching leaders sort of how to follow the laws and how to navigate them. And while that's important, I realized, oh, that's actually the easy part, right? It's all
Hmm.
it's all this other stuff that we're talking about, the communication, the setting up onboarding, the valuing your team members, all the stuff that most people don't ever learn.
Hmm.
They have no idea how to do that. So that is really what I started finding, that probably just a few years in, and I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. Like, this is what I mean, and obviously I still help people navigate the HR side of things because
Sure.
it does affect the leader. They have to think about those things, and I get it. There's laws that they have to follow, but there's a way to do that and
Hmm.
still get to where they want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always love it when you can come from personal experience of knowing what you don't think is right
Yeah.
and healthy. And it's like
Yeah.
you found that problem to solve and go, how do I make this better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do too. I do too.
So, what are some of the things that you see out there that you're like, wow, that leader is like crushing it? Like they are making such a big difference. They are so impactful. What are those traits or
Oh my
activities?
gosh. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you one that sort of started from a leader who got some feedback that wasn't necessarily positive
Okay.
from their team, but we had a couple coaching calls. I coached them before, and they were very much like you described. Just they're very, like, they have huge impact in their role. They make
Hmm.
incredible amount of revenue for the company. They're very successful, but sometimes they forget about the people thing.
Hmm.
So they went off, did a great job. So they came back to me and said, okay, I got some feedback. I think I've sort of forgot, some of the things I'm supposed to be doing. And this is, I just was like, it just made me smile. I was like, so we came up with a little plan. The leader goes away, comes back and says, okay, I'm going out there. And this leader went to every single person and basically said, like, I'm sorry. I realize that I just, move on and I'm not acknowledging you and I'm not making you feel valued. What do I need to do better? And I was like, oh, I was so proud.
Wow.
And the leader said to me, I feel like it's when you're trying to turn around your Google reviews.
Oh.
You gotta get out there. And then what I love is they really mean it. They're not
Yeah,
just doing it so they'll get good feedback, but they really were they really took it to heart. Like,
Mhm.
but don't they see all the good things I'm doing? I'm like, I'm sure they see all the good things they're doing, but they need you to also see how they're helping you be successful.
Mhm.
So I love that leader is just was very ready to just go and have these really hard conversations. And
Yeah.
not all of them ended lovely, by the
Mm.
way. There were people that were like, I'm still kind of mad at you. And it was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'm going to keep working on it. Just so you
Right.
know, like I'm not going to give up. But I wanted to start here.
Yeah.
There's another leader. God, there's so many. You made me think about so many people came to mind. I mean, one of my favorite leaders ever was my first leader, and I always share this story about her because I just love it. But I was so anxious. I'm a human resources manager, second job out of college, 150 employees. I had never been in HR. I worked for Enterprise Rent a Car.
Mm.
I was doing the rental car thing. They hired me, thank goodness. And I remember she was standing in my doorway, getting ready to leave me one day. And I said, what if I mess up? Like, what if I make a big mistake? And she said to me, Anne, there is not one thing that you can do that I can't fix.
Oh.
And I was like, what? She said, I can fix it all. Give me some examples. So I started saying things. So, of course, it went to this extreme. Like,
Right.
what if I fired somebody without getting permission? She said, well, first of all, you wouldn't do that. I know you. And she's like, you
Right.
wouldn't do that. She said, but second of all, I could rehire them. I could bring them back. I could, I can pay them the money they lost. Like, there's so many things I could do. I can make it right again.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And I swear, like, that set the foundation up for me to be
Wow.
successful in my career because I always felt that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
That's so cool. I mean, she
Yeah.
really like gave you that safe place just to like
Yeah.
trust yourself.
Yeah.
and
Just do it. And like,
Yeah.
okay, Ramona's got my back.
Yes.
Good
Oh,
here. Yeah. But
I
I
love
think that ability to just, again, be able to be as authentic as you can, be as honest as you can, and acknowledge that you're not perfection just because
Mhm.
you're the leader,
Yeah.
but you're also not going to just keep making mistakes over and over and over again. If you're
Sure.
a leader that does something that, maybe you get frustrated outwardly with people. If you just keep doing that and apologizing, it doesn't work.
Right.
But if you make a mistake and then you go back and you're like, really, I reflected on this and that maybe
Mhm.
wasn't the right move, people respond to that so
Mhm.
well. They just love that authentic leader who's really willing to sort of be side by side with
Yeah.
them.
I mean, I
Yeah.
hear vulnerability and humility
Mhm.
in there.
Yeah.
So let's rattle off a few of those characteristics.
Okay.
So people that are listening can kind of like maybe give yourself a little report card here,
I
right?
love
We'll talk
that.
about like what the characteristics are. And as you're listening, give yourself a score, maybe something on 1 to 10.
I love that.
Right. So humility.
Yeah,
It's important.
humility. Yes.
Okay. What else?
Well, I know you just said it too. Well, can we throw good
Vulnerability.
communication on there?
Yes.
I know we've been talking about it a lot.
Proactive, like a good
Yes,
communicator.
proactive communication, vulnerability.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I think, and it's another ability, but accountability is huge.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just celebrate your team's successes. You also have to take, you can't be like, oh yeah, my team's so great. Look at what we did. But you also have to be willing to accept the losses too.
Right.
And
Right.
not point fingers.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Okay.
a big
So
one.
accountability.
Honesty probably falls in with
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
What else can we put on that list? We can make
Empathy?
a long, yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Empathy goes such a long way.
Yeah.
It really does. Speaking of how hard it is in California to make termination decisions
Uh-huh.
without there being like, concern. We have a couple of clients that they terminate employees. I don't want to say all the time, but I'm going to say easily. And I
Mhm.
swear it is because both of those leaders are some of the most empathetic people. But
Mhm.
they're also clear communicators, right? So they clearly communicate, but they mix that in with empathy and they try to work with the employees as best as they can, but then they have that boundary.
Mhm.
So maybe that we can add on that list too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, well, in what you just said there, if we look at all those characteristics,
Hmm.
if you're a leader who's showing up with honesty, right? You're holding your people accountable, you're
Yeah.
taking responsibility, you're communicating. When something does happen, that path we talked about, you've laid the path to have the hard conversation.
Exactly.
And also, I mean, I've always been in the camp of if I have to let someone go, that it's not a right fit and that they are
Right.
going to be better off.
Yes.
They're being held hostage at this point. Most
Right.
people
Right.
think that, oh gosh, they're going to be so upset. And maybe they will in that moment.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you how many people at teams that I coach or people that I've worked for that have been like, I'm so much better. Like, it was
Hmm.
such a good shift for me. I learned something really valuable. I found out what I really love. So I think sometimes we make up
Exactly.
those stories for people.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. I agree.
But those are all great characteristics.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the behaviors. I'm trying to like really bullet point so people, I
Yeah,
know
I
they're
love it. I
listening and are
appreciate
like,
that.
okay, what can
Like,
I
what do I
write
do now?
down?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have you rank stuff. You
Okay.
rank it on a scale of 1 to 10.
Okay, I love it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to give you like, not a characteristic, but like a habit or an
Okay.
action. Okay.
Okay.
So, um, acknowledgement and recognition.
Oh my gosh, I'm putting that at 10.
10.
I don't
Okay.
go 10 all the way
I
down.
was going to say, you're
That
going
is
to say 10
such
for
a big
everything.
one. And again, it doesn't have to be anything big. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to cost a dime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the recognition
So
acknowledgement,
important.
10.
Hmm.
Okay. Huge. What about
I'm trying not to say 10.
you I'll have to find a really bad one
Yeah,
for
I
you or
know. Let's
something.
see.
Yes. Um Emotional connection.
Okay, I would say you could probably be in the 7 or 8 category.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Honesty.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's got to be a 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a hard one.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, this is why I'm pausing on that because I know that there's things that come across leaders' desks that they can't be honest about.
Mm,
Right. So, like, if we are restructuring and we're laying people off
sure.
or, something big like that. So, I think, so maybe I would say in that, it's like you've got to be as honest as you can, as often as you can. So, those times when you can't be, everyone's not like, oh, typical. Here we
Right.
go again with the lies.
Yes. It's a one-off.
They know that that was like something you couldn't share.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay. That those scheduled meetings, like meaningful
Oh,
time
yeah.
together, the meetings, the one-on-ones.
I mean, I would love to make it a 10, but I'll live with a 7.
Okay.
That
All
one, a
right.
7 or 8. I do think they're really important, though.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
do.
Okay. And what about getting the feedback?
Yeah, that's so big. I mean, that again, if we're talking about in that meeting concept, I would put that as high up on your list as you can.
Okay.
But it's so important to listen to your team and and even not only what they're saying, but how they're acting. Are
Yes.
they
Okay.
calling in sick? Do you have a lot of injuries, right? Are they not helping each other?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a lot of, oh, they're not doing that? Or do you see they're on their phone? They're not supposed to be on their
Mm-hmm.
phone. A lot of that's going on. You
Mm-hmm.
know that you have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What about feedback on the other side? Like that constructive feedback that really helps shape people,
Yeah. 10.
10. Yeah. People steer away from that one.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. And I know it's uncomfortable, but it's okay.
Say something about that.
Why is it uncomfortable or why is it
No, like
okay?
why is it so important? How can
It's
people reframe
so
this?
important. I know this is such a timely conversation because I had so many instances yesterday where I was just thinking about all that. Like somebody said to me, and these are the words that I listen to a lot of people say. They say, "Oh gosh, I'm so glad I'm having this conversation with you because I'm not good at confrontation." And I said, "How
Mm.
can we reframe that?" Because
Mhm.
I don't see this conversation as confrontation. I see that you have an employee that's not meeting your expectations. You want them to meet expectations. This is not a leader who's like, I'm just trying to get rid of them. They really want to keep the person.
Mhm.
So you're just trying to give them information that will be helpful for them. Now, what they do with it, we
Right.
can't control,
Right.
right? But so I think that it's just so that trying to and I think it comes from practice. I do
Mhm.
think it comes from practice and just having the conversations and also knowing that it might be uncomfortable and it's
Mhm.
okay.
Mhm.
And if the employee says, well, this is really uncomfortable, and say, I would imagine it is. Like, this isn't a fun conversation, at this
Mhm.
moment. So I'd imagine
Right.
it is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And also, I frequently am trying to encourage leaders to ask questions instead of defending in those moments.
Yes.
If an employee says, well, this doesn't seem fair because that's not what you're doing. Okay, well, tell me more about that, rather than, what
Mhm.
do you mean I'm doing this and I'm doing that? Because that's where they go. They go to a place
Right,
of
right.
defensiveness. So tell
And
me
then you
more.
lose that leadership,
Yes,
right? Because now
exactly.
you're just kind of in the boxing ring.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah,
Okay. So super, super important for people to understand that giving that constructive criticism, that feedback,
yeah,
it helps people grow
yeah,
and evolve. And they want to do that. They want to meet
yeah.
expectations. Yes.
One
Okay.
other thing I was thinking about that is
Yeah.
not minimizing it, because I also find a lot of people will say, I'm just going to talk to them for 10 minutes. Okay, here's another
Mm,
pet peeve of mine. It's a 10-minute conversation. I'm like, it might be 10 minutes for you to talk,
right.
maybe, but what about them?
Hmm.
Like, so don't minimize it for the employee, or this shouldn't be a big deal. I'll just tell them as we're walking down the hall. No, I
Mm-hmm.
remember years ago, I had a leader who, well, how I found out is the employee comes back to the office. I was consulting for them, basically swipes everything off of her desk into a box and said, I'm quitting,
Mm,
and leaves. And I was like, what happened? And the leader had to give this employee some constructive feedback
yeah.
and decided to do it while they were driving to an event. And I said, wow, like that couldn't have, there's so many things that are wrong there. You're
Yeah.
not facing each other. You don't have eye contact. You're distracted. You're driving. The person can't leave. Like they feel trapped in that moment, and they
Mm-hmm.
can't excuse themselves if they need a moment, or maybe move a little bit,
Yeah.
or distance themselves from you, or whatever the things that they might need to do to feel okay. And I was like, oh goodness. And I remember, I thought that is something I will forever remember. Like that is
Mhm.
not the time to have the conversation.
Right. Oh, I just, yeah.
Yeah. But it was safety for the leader.
Right.
That lack of all those things that I just mentioned made it safe for that leader, because they didn't have to sort of be vulnerable
Yes.
and really connect with the employee because
And
they
it
were busy.
minimized it,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you're saying, right? It makes it easier, makes it less uncomfortable
Yeah.
for the leader.
Yeah.
And really we're shortchanging
Yeah.
the person they're giving it to. Okay, here's one.
Okay. I'm ready.
Consequences. Is that
Is
funny?
this a 1 through 10, or is this
Yes, yes.
Oh
How
my
important are
gosh.
consequences?
That is such a good question, because I have such mixed feelings about this.
Okay.
Because I feel like, oh gosh, I this is a good one. This is gonna make me really think this through right
Okay.
now on the spot.
Right.
But they're definitely okay. So on one hand, I feel like there should be consequences, but I don't know if it's the traditional way we go about it.
Mm.
Right? I think, I'm gonna write you up once, I'm gonna write you up 2 times, and then you're terminated.
Mhm.
I am always trying to encourage leaders to document conversations all the time, no matter what, because I feel like everyone remembers things in different ways and people learn things in different ways.
Mhm.
And, jokingly, I'll often say, like, when was the last time you had a conversation with a spouse or significant other and you walked away and you would repeat what you heard? And they're like, that is not what I said.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And think about, in a situation where you're getting constructive feedback and you're having all these feelings, it's probably hard to remember everything.
Mm.
So I want them to document it, but I'm sort of torn on the whole 1, 2, 3 thing, or
Mm.
feeling. So I'm even working that out right now. So I love that
Interesting.
question.
Yeah. Because I mean, and so we'll just chat about I was
Yeah.
genuinely curious because
Yeah.
I feel like people need to understand and that's an accountability piece,
Yeah, that's
right? Because
true.
if it's always just like, okay, all right, well, all right, here's another
Yeah,
lesson to
here's
learn. Here's
another.
another lesson
Yes.
to learn. And it's like, at what point, I feel like we're
It's a very,
helping them believe that like anything can happen, just keep
yeah, just keep going on.
just keep
And I
failing
think
and
I
whatever.
totally think so I think that the consequences that I often think of is if someone has sort of gotten off track,
Yeah.
and they're not getting back on track, we need to, depending on what it is, we need to start doing regular meetings where we
Mhm.
actually are not just engagement meetings, but meeting with them every 2 weeks, going through
Mhm.
what's going well, what's not going well, and probably making a decision pretty quickly. If as long as the consequences aren't like a punitive thing, like
Mhm.
sometimes people will say, oh, well, can I just demote them? Can I, and you can, but I've
Oof.
never seen a demoted
No.
employee suddenly perform. I'm going to tell you that. That is the last thing they do. Oh my goodness.
Okay, no.
So I don't want to, but I hear what you're saying. And I do think there needs to be some discussion around where this is going or what's
Right.
happening. Yeah.
Right. Because I feel
Yeah.
like you can lose your edge as the leader, right? If it's
Yeah.
always just kind of like a
One more and one more.
nothing ever
Yeah. Yeah.
happens. And yeah, I think you just said it really well as far as like consequences may not be the most ideal word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Showing my leadership. No. It may not be the ideal word, but like having those meetings, those conversations,
Mhm.
a performance plan, right? A performance
Yes,
enhancement plan,
exactly.
something like that, so that people understand that, hey, we're on a path here to
Yeah.
create change. We
Yeah.
can't just keep having the same thing reoccurring
Yeah,
again and
it's
again
so
and again.
interesting because I was thinking about when I've often told leaders, because they'll say, well, okay, I had a conversation with about this and then it happened again.
Yeah.
And I'll say, so did you acknowledge that this was the second conversation you were having? And no one ever says that. It's like, so
Right.
this is the second conversation we're having about this. And when we left the room last time, I thought we were all clear. So
Yes.
what happened between that day and today where we obviously something was amiss? Did you
Mhm.
misunderstand what I was asking for? And then it's sort of like at some point, I'm with you. It's like, we're not going to have this conversation again. Like, this is
Mhm.
your chance to demonstrate that you're going to be able to do
Right.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tend to be in the camp of like that gives people so much potential and
Yeah.
opportunity to rise up, you
Yeah.
know? Mhm.
Yeah. I feel like people can do it if they really want to do it. And sometimes they don't. Or, like I said, sometimes they're not a match for their role
Right.
anymore for some reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Oh my gosh. I feel like we could sit here and laugh and talk about this all day
We
long.
could.
Leadership, so many good pieces. But and as we're kind of wrapping up
Yeah.
here, I want people to really zone in and go, okay, where's my opportunity? So as the people that are listening right now,
Yeah.
as a leader, we've given them some great characteristics to lean into. Some of those performance pieces as far as the recognition, accountability, the meetings, they're hearing
Hmm.
all of that. What I think is going to be helpful is for people to understand what is outdated and old.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Any kind of, you had said it before, like, I just want people to do their job. I'm paying them to do their job. That kind of, I'm not saying that there isn't some truth in that, but that sort of thinking is so outdated.
Okay.
Got to drop that and be like, you are paying them to do a job, but we also have to give them the tools
Mhm.
and the feedback and all of that to be successful. I think
Okay.
that's so outdated. If anybody is still yelling at their employees, we got to move on from that. But it does happen because I
Uh-huh.
run into that a lot. We got to move on from that. You got to figure out some emotional regulation
Yes,
so
little
that
EQ,
you're
right?
not allowing someone to get that angry. And I just, I think that, I mean, like I said, when I started, I had some very progressive leaders, and one of them in particular, I think was so forward thinking on the way that we think about not only what the company needs to do, but the impact that it's going to have on the
Mhm.
team,
Mhm.
individuals and the team. And I think that is, more people need to be shifting. If they're not already doing that, they've got to be shifting that. Not just, okay, we have to do this and this is how it is. And I get it. We're going to get there. I mean, I've been through some really tough situations, both in-house and as a consultant. But there's a way to preserve people, sort of their dignity and respect along the
Yes.
way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a little.
Yeah.
And what about anything on kind of the system side of things? Like I heard you say earlier, it used to be so traditional of like, here's your 90-day. And you're like, we can do this anytime.
Yeah.
We can have a reset. So anything like
Yeah.
that outdated, either the way people do performance reviews, the pay, anything like that, leaders need to be like, you got to change that.
Yeah, I do think it's time to completely revamp in performance review processes. They're often very complicated. There's all these numbers that people are rating. No one really understands what the difference is between a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4 or 5. They
Yeah.
have words underneath them, but
Right.
no one can really explain. Now that you brought that up, one of the things I find extremely outdated is if you're using a number system, let's say it's 1 through 5, people have to be able to get a 5. Like, if I hear one more
Oh.
employee say, well, they said no one's a 5. Take it off your form then.
Yeah.
Why? What do you mean no one's a 5? And, for all the time I've been doing this, and I've taught a lot of workshops on performance management. And I have said this more times, and I'm going to say it on your podcast now, so I might be eating my words, but I've said to people, if the worst problem you have is that all of your employees are exceeding expectations, truly,
Mhm.
and that means you have a super high performing team. That means revenue is going to be good. That means everyone's going to be happy, right? People are exceeding their goals. And you literally are stumped with what to do next. Like, I will come in for free and help you figure that out.
You heard it
Because,
here.
yeah, because what? Like, that's the best worst case problem to have. And when
Mhm.
you get a person that is exceeding expectations, that's the conversation you need to have. Like,
Yeah.
you are doing so well here. How do I keep you engaged? What do
Right.
we need to do? How do we set this up so you continue to be excited to come in
Yeah.
every single day?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big one. Those performance reviews, everybody needs to revamp them.
Mm.
And probably the other thing is just think that they are for the employee, not for the leader. So when the leaders are complaining about the form and the time and it's just so cumbersome, it's like they're about the employee. So we've got to invest the time that we need to make it valuable, meaningful feedback for the person.
Yeah. I love that you brought up like people always stay off that high number because that's a certain
Yes.
personality type who is like, well, that means you have nowhere
No
to
one's
grow,
perfect.
right? Nobody's
Yeah,
perfect. And
yeah.
if I was a 5, then I'd have nowhere to grow.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, I love that. Then take it off your form. Then they'd
Take
be
it
like,
off your
nobody's a
form.
4.
Yeah, that's exactly. No one's a 4. No one's a 3. I'm like, why? What? And then they were like, that's what they say. Well, they won't have anywhere to grow. And I'm like, but that conversation is not motivating the employee. When they're like, well, you would have been a 5, but no one's a 5.
Yeah.
So we're just giving you a 4. It's like the employee's like, what is happening right now? Why am I working so
like
hard?
the rabbit the dog can never catch. You know what I mean? You just keep chasing.
I'm like, what? That sounds like a great problem to have.
Yeah.
That you have such high performing people that
Right.
you're actually kind of stumped at what do I do to keep these people excited to come in here every day. Giving them a 4 isn't it?
Right. Newsflash.
Exactly.
Love it. Oh my gosh. All right. Any last pieces that are outdated?
Oh my gosh. No, I think you hit some of the
Okay.
good ones. Yeah. I mean, the last thing I'll just say, as I just want to say, because I think a lot of leaders say this, is a lot of leaders tell me they don't have the time to supervise their people. And I'm like, the worst news is when you took a leadership role, you have to make time. Like there is no employee, including those leaders who operated without any feedback or any guidance, whether it was negative or positive, they got guidance and they got feedback, and you have to make the time. And I know that with the way the work world is, it's like, there was a time that leaders used to just lead. They didn't have to also carry a full workload.
Right.
And I understand it. And I'm not saying that it's an easy job to have, but it's like imperative that you invest the time.
So big, huge question here for those people who are like, yeah, I'm in that leadership position. I wasn't trained as a leader. I don't know how to be a leader. All of that. Like, where would you tell them to start? Or what would you tell them to do? Come see you?
Oh,
or
yeah,
what?
they can definitely come see me. They can give me a call.
Uh-huh.
But I would say just start seeking out. I mean, if they're a self-learner, they can
Yeah.
seek out great books about leadership.
What's your favorite book on
Podcasts.
leadership?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. So I'm going to tell you, it's it's leadership adjacent, which is
Okay.
actually another suggestion I was going to give. I love this book called Boundary Boss.
Okay.
Have you read that?
No.
I really like it.
Okay.
But I would say even that, like it doesn't have to be directly like how to be a great leader. It can also be things like, how to influence people. What's
Oh,
it?
yes.
You know what I
Yes,
mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I can't even think of it
I
right
can't think
now.
of it either.
Yes,
But like
uh-huh.
you can do things like that. You can do things about even like there's that, I think it's called Never Eat Alone. Like there's things that are
Yes.
really and you have to be able to understand what you can pull out of that and bring to your leadership table, but you can totally do that.
Even a coaching book. I'll give people like the
Yes.
coaching handbook all the time. Just to understand how
Yes.
to ask questions. Okay.
Yeah. So I think they can do self-study. They can find somebody like me. There are great workshops out there. I mean, I will say I always feel, I don't know, they don't always have to be expensive, but you want to make sure you're investing in one that's actually a really good program that's
Yeah.
been tried and, tested.
Yeah.
And then I just feel like one of the things I get so excited about, there's so many resources now that were not there years ago.
So
Like
true.
if you think about like with YouTube and, it's
Yeah.
just unbelievable the things you can listen to.
So true.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna put you on the spot for one
Okay,
last question.
I'm ready.
The
Thanks.
first thing
Okay.
that they should focus on, because like you can read a whole leadership book, all of this stuff, but
Yeah.
if it was like the first thing you should really master.
Oh, I was going to answer that
Yes.
differently.
Oh.
Okay, the first thing you should master. I think it's got to be the communication.
Okay.
It's got to be having those tough conversations. That's really it. It's
Okay.
not just communication. It's like really what makes me the most uncomfortable about it and how do I start working through that?
Which ties into the mindset.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
I
It
love
really does. It really
Yes.
does.
You were going to
Yeah.
answer in a different way. What were you going to say?
So I was going to say the most important thing they should do right away. I thought is what you were going to say is look at their team immediately and say, would I enthusiastically rehire every single person on my team right now? And if you have a pause or a no, we got to figure that out. The yeses, woohoo, we're good. But then any pauses, even if you're like, well, they do some things good, but not everything, right? It's like, we got to figure that out. And then we had to start working with them to help them figure, well, are they right for the team? But then we need to give them that chance to be successful.
You know what I love?
What?
When a podcast guest drops like the biggest gem right at the end. I got goosebumps. I'm like, ooh, okay, everyone's going to all of a sudden start looking at their team And
it?
that's just such a simple question.
It's such a simple question. And I learned it from my coach. So, yeah.
I love
Yeah,
that.
such a simple question.
Such a simple question. And
Yeah.
you can't deny if you have the pause. Like, ooh, it's
I
gonna.
know. I know. I know. It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
The minute you start making excuses or yeah, there's something missing there. And I really your best employees should feel like you've got it all. Right? It shouldn't be like, well, they're really great at what they do and they're late all the time. Or they
Yes.
really are good with systems, but they're not really good with people. That's not what you're looking for. If all they have to do is systems and never work with people, then great.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're making excuses, you've got to work on that there and figure out what it
Mm.
is. Maybe the job's designed wrong because sometimes, especially depending on people's budgets, they push a ton of
Overlap.
things
Yeah.
into one job. I see a lot of HR roles like that. I'll look at the job and I'll be like, okay, so hold on. The person that is like data entry is not the same person that's recruiting for you.
Right.
Likely.
Right.
They're very different people.
Yes.
So it
Yep.
might be that it has to be a shift like that.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much. This
you.
has been such a fun conversation. And I
So
just know
good.
that everyone listening is gotten some gems here, whether it's the
So glad.
characteristics, whether it's the habits or the outdated pieces. And obviously, if people want to find you, I'm always following you on Instagram.
I know that's okay. I'm on Instagram and I'm on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
believe it or not.
Of
So
course you would be,
I
right?
know it's actually oddly works really well
Yeah.
for people who've been following me for a long time. So yeah, I
Yeah.
do both of those. And
And
they're just under my
Laguzza.
name. Yep.
Yes. Yes. It'll all be in the show notes.
Thank you.
But thanks so much for being here, Anne.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Sharing Wisdom. Now, if you know someone who is a leader who needs to hear this podcast, could pick up on one of these characteristics or these habits, send it over to them. And if you like the show, give it a like and comment too. See you next time.